everyone, and welcome. I'm Ian Sherman. I'm the proud, honored, humbled, and blessed chair of the Board of Directors of the Jewish Federation of Ottawa. And one of the reasons why I use the words that I describe my role as chair is because of people like all of you. The news from Ukraine has been overwhelming, and it's been heartbreaking, which in part explains why so many community members have said, Hineni, here I am, here we are, and put up their hands to help by making a gift to Jewish Federation of Ottawa's Ukraine Relief Fund, completing the volunteer intake form, and participating tonight. Thank you for always being there to help Jews in need, whether it is here in Ottawa, in Israel, or currently 7,000 kilometers away. I'd like to express my appreciation and the appreciation of the Jewish Federation of Ottawa for the leadership role that Jewish Family Services has been playing in organizing a robust response to the potential influx of Ukrainian refugees into our community. And to Andrea Gardner, Associate AD in particular at JFS, for her tireless work. Just as Federation's partners are able to respond on the ground overseas to the humanitarian crisis, Jewish Family Services is able to respond on the ground today because they have always been there, just like all of you. This is the kind of life-saving work that JFS, Federation, and our overseas partners have always done. But again, it is only thanks to incredible donors and volunteers, such as all of you and many more. Thank you, Toda Rabbah. I'd now like to introduce Aviva Ben-Chorin, co-chair of Jewish Family Services.
Thank you, Ian. I'd also like to say a big thank you to the Jewish Federation of Ottawa for their enthusiastic collaboration with the Jewish Family Services in this endeavor. It's a pleasure to work together. And a big thank you goes out to all the people who put in so much time to make sure that we're ready when people arrive in Ottawa in need. A big thank you goes to Sarah Caspi and Andrea Gardner for putting in the long hours above and beyond their regular duties when needed. When the demand for Jewish Family Services grew during COVID, they found a way to respond. And here we are again in another example of how our community and our agencies step up when the need is there. History is full of the tragedies of people displaced by war. We all hoped that the world was growing beyond that possibility. I'd like to express my gratitude for the good fortune that allows us to live in Ottawa, Canada, in peace and prosperity, and to remind everyone that we are gathered today on the traditional lands of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. May we all continue to provide hope in dark times by reaching out to one another and helping others to the best of our ability. I would like to pass the discussion over right now to Rabbi Eitan Kenter, the Senior Rabbi of Kehilat Beit Israel, for a Dvar Torah.
Thank you, Aviva, and thank you everyone for being here today. Especially the week before Passover, where I know we all have a lot going on in our lives, but perhaps there is no more relevant holiday to be thinking about in relation to the conversation that we're going to be having this evening. At our Seder every year, we don't remember that that slavery is in the past. We say, B'chol dor v'dor chayav adam lirod et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatzam Mitzrayim, that in every generation, we have to see ourselves as if we are the ones who are fleeing slavery, persecution, and oppression. As a reminder that in every generation, unfortunately, this reality continues to remain. And in asking that question and thinking about what it means to have this reality continue in our world, it's also a reminder that just as we were able to be freed from the persecution and oppression of slavery, so too is it possible for in every generation for that same result to take place. And so it is incumbent upon each and every one of us to do all that we can to support those in need, to support those who will be joining us here in Ottawa, to support those who are fleeing oppression and destruction in their homes as they come to build a better future here in Ottawa. Perhaps at the Seder, there's no more important idea than the importance of questions, which is we don't always know the answers, but we have to know what questions we need to ask. And so tonight is an evening where all of us are asking the same question: what can we do? How can we help? And so I'm so grateful to the Jewish Federation and to Jewish Family Services for putting this evening together, for sharing their wisdom with us and helping us all understand what we can do to make a difference in some small way here in our Ottawa Jewish community. And so I'll turn it over now to Andrea Friedman, the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Ottawa, to continue this conversation.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Kenter, and thank you, Ian, and thank you, Aviva, and really thank you to everyone for being here. So my job is simply to help facilitate this evening. Our main presenter is going to be Andrea Gardner, the Associate Director of Jewish Family Service. And so if you have any questions for her, please put it to me in the chat. And if it's a clarification question in the middle of her presentation, I will try to get her attention and ask the question. If it's a specific question, we're going to leave it to the end. Because there's so many people on this Zoom, which is amazing. I'm going to ask that if your question is really specific and something perhaps that just you or maybe one other person might know, hold that question. We'll wrap things up, and then Andrea has graciously agreed to stay on the Zoom and deal with a smaller group of people who might have some more detailed questions. But we'll try to keep everything with the big group more general. So feel free to email, text me questions in the chat, and I will do my best to present them to Andrea for her answers. So without further ado, Andrea Gardner. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. And I don't see my screen up because I have my notes. I just want to make sure that we've got the presentation up.
You're good.
Okay, I got to just, okay, wonderful. So, wow, I actually, because my screen is in so many different places, can't see you all, and I don't know how many people are here, but when I was watching everybody come in, it was so heartening and almost overwhelming to see familiar faces and new faces and just the generosity of community. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Ian, Aviva, Rabbi Kenter, for setting the table so nicely and for your kind words. Jewish Family Services of Ottawa is a community leader in settlement. As a government-funded settlement agency by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, we have 40 years of helping newcomers call Ottawa their home. We are proud of our expertise in this area. We help to inform the city of best practices when working with newcomers, and we are fierce advocates when it comes to the needs of newcomers in their resettlement journey. Besides offering core settlement services, we also have a refugee and vulnerable newcomer mental health program that is highly skilled in the area of trauma-informed counseling, children's programs to help the young adapt, youth programs that help teens develop social and leadership skills in Canada. We have training for volunteers to understand the mental health needs of those who have experienced migration journeys related to civil war and unrest, and recently have included anti-racism in our training modules. We've done this before. We've helped to settle thousands of newcomers to Canada from all different races, backgrounds, and religions. Under this new pathway, there are two ways by which Ukrainians can come to Canada. First, through the Ukrainian Authorization for Emergency Travel, which allows Ukrainian nationals to travel to Canada as temporary residents with work permits or study permits, and to stay in Canada for up to 3 years. Second is the Expedited Expanded Family Reunification Program. This program is yet to be rolled out as IRCC is working on expanding the definition of family for this Ukrainian program. Inland sponsorships will also be expedited as well. It is important to note that Ukrainians will come to Canada as temporary residents or as family-sponsored immigrants. They are not designated as refugees in Canada. This is due to the durable solution for settlement in Europe. Warmly welcomed by neighboring countries in the EU, they are getting help with jobs, healthcare, income support, and housing. Because they are not recognized as refugees in Canada, this affects what government supports they are eligible for here. That being said, the Canadian government continues to make announcements on the availability of supports, and we expect more expansions of those in the coming weeks. We wake up every day and we learn, just like everybody else, what we're going to be facing in terms of how we'll be able to support Ukrainians on a daily basis. Currently, the province of Ontario has announced that Ukrainians will be eligible for OHIP, employment opportunities through job banks and other Employment Ontario services, language classes, school enrollment, post-secondary financial aid, and emergency support for 48 days. There are 80 million refugees worldwide. Over 7.1 million people have been internally displaced since the invasion of Ukraine, according to the Ukraine Internal Displacement Report issued by the IOM, which is the Internal Organization for Migration. More than 50% of displaced households have children, 57% include elderly members, and 30% are people with chronic illnesses. Last week, I had the honor of hearing Filippo Grande, the UNHCR High Commissioner for Refugees here in Ottawa. He indicated that the world is in crisis. With Ukrainian displaced people, the world will see in a very short time over 100 million refugees. They are overwhelmed, scared, and clinging to hope. And we don't know what to expect. A critical mass of newcomers, a slow trickle, or a wave. Almost 120,000 visa applications have been received by the Canadian government up until April the 6th, the last statistics I saw this morning. Approximately 32,000 of these applications have been approved, but as of yet, we have no way of tracking how many actually intend to come. But we do know that we need to be prepared. For preliminary intake of visa applications, we are working with Jewish Immigrant Aid Services in Toronto as our central intake unit for those Jewish Ukrainians who are wishing to come to Canada. You should know that Jewish Canada is very coordinated, and JFS is taking a lead in this coordination effort. We must be comfortable understanding that there are a lot of unknowns, and I know that that's difficult when there is such a groundswell of a desire to help. Different from others you may have helped or been involved with in the past, the Vietnamese, Syrians, Afghans, Ukrainians want to go home, and they may or may not have that, but they do desire it. In response, we know it's better to be prepared and organized rather than being reactive. So I personally thank you all for being here tonight, for being interested and for wanting to help. As the numbers indicated previously, we anticipate, and this is just anticipation, that the demographics we will see with the men under 60 not allowed to leave, we'll be seeing seniors and women with children who have left their spouses behind. And we must be sensitive that the different demographics will have different needs. As you have seen through Federation's updates, newsletters, and Shul Shabbat messages, we have set up a dedicated pathway for volunteering. I have noticed in the chat just before I started speaking that a number of you are looking for the link, and we will make sure that anybody who is interested in accessing the link gets it either tonight or in the days to come. The staff at Federation, I cannot thank you enough. They are working closely with us to identify all of the generous offers and requests. I know there's been some inquiries, and if you haven't been responded to, please be patient. At this time, I'm a team of one on the JFS side of the equation, and we are working hard, and shortly we'll be able to build our staffing capacity to expand our reach and answer everybody's questions. We take volunteering very, very seriously, and all of our volunteers will be screened. While we know that newcomers are resilient, they are a vulnerable population, and we need to be thoughtful and cautious. All volunteers eventually will be registered through Jewish Family Services, and we will help everybody to access a police records check through a letter that we will issue out. We will be generating specific and general roles as we design the volunteer opportunities. Specifically, we will be working with welcome circles, and I'm going to speak to that next. And generally, when we are thinking about volunteer roles, we are considering the expansion of our successful and existing programs. And some of you have participated in them in the past as volunteers at Jewish Family Services, in particular for seniors that include friendly visiting and conversational English. What we're thinking here and what we're hearing from our friends at JIAS in Toronto is that if seniors are coming under a family reunification pathway and they are going to be with family members here in Ottawa, they will be isolated, and their family members, while graciously supporting them and helping them, will need to have outside support for their integration. So conversational English, friendly visiting, walks, shopping will be all wonderful things that we're already doing, and we're going to expand them to include that in this. But no one is here, or very few are here. Some are starting to arrive, and we're seeing this, but we haven't really identified a large number. So I can share with you that there are many formal and informal groups that are supporting newcomers and refugees in Ottawa today. An amazing group, an absolutely amazing group from our Jewish community has been working tirelessly with recently arrived Afghans. Temple Israel and members of Adath Shalom and other congregations have over the past years lent their time and energy. So if you are interested in practicing while we wait for incoming Ukrainians, we can connect you with groups and organizations. And finally, with regards to physical donations on the volunteering side, Jewish Family Services does not collect physical donations. And I'm talking about furniture. I'm talking about furniture and clothing and other generously thought of donations. We don't have the capacity or the facility to do so, but we are working very, very closely with other organizations and agencies in Ottawa that do this very well. And we would be happy to refer them to you and know that we will be accessing those physical donations that you make to our partner organizations. So I know that there's going to be a lot of questions. I see the chat moving along. I do want to spend the last part of what I have to share with you on welcome circles. Welcome circles are inspired by the private sponsorship model, and they provide a social network and support to newcomers. This is the best defense against social isolation, depression, and anxiety and stress as newcomers start a new life in a new country. Welcome circles are teams of 5 to 8 or 8 to 10 people who provide hands-on support in the early days of arrival and continue through the weeks and months as they settle. It's a commitment of both time, skill, and energy. Time, we're looking daytime, evening, and weekend time. We often say that retired people are fantastic because the daytime is when banks are open and service centers are open for applying for cards and other necessary documentation. Skills to match with the different needs, and I'm going to go through that list of skill sets. And it's a commitment of energy and compassion, patience, and understanding. All Welcome Circle volunteers will have access to settlement guidance and support from Jewish Family Services through our settlement outreach team, and will have access to training like how to form a welcome circle, cultural sensitivity training, of which we are working with the UCC, United Congress. I'm getting my words mixed up.
Ukrainian Canadian Congress.
Thank you so much, Ukrainian Canadian Congress. Thank you. Long day. Ethics and boundaries, as well as access to settlement services, housing, employment, and health, for example. So when I go back to the skill set, what does a welcome circle do? Well, it's wraparound support. So it's meeting newcomers at the airport. It's creating welcome gift bags. It's daily calls to families. It's touring and orientation of Ottawa. It's setting up school enrollment, language instruction for newcomer to Canada, which are the LINK classes registration. It's daycare. It's setting up digital resources. It's accessing bus passes and driver's license. It's helping to find healthcare. It's helping to ensure that vaccinations are up to date. It's accessing primary and dental care, as well as mental health supports as needed. It's securing housing, and I anticipate there to be quite a number of questions about housing. I'll do my best to answer them. But it's securing a soft landing place if they don't have anywhere to go. It's looking at what the quarantine space will look like if needed. It's securing permanent housing, housing furniture, and basic household supplies. It's helping with employment, whether that be putting together a resume or connecting the newcomers within your circle around a matched skill sets. It's school registration from elementary to secondary to post-secondary, and helping to navigate and walk them through that. It's community integration, recreational activities, summer camp registrations, networking with like-minded people, and connections to support. It's a lot of time filling out applications for a social insurance number, setting up a CRA account, a child tax benefit application. It's working with them on their taxes. It's doing the immigration document process. It's moving their visitor's visa to permanent residence application. It's opening a bank account. It's working with them on their digital connection and making sure that they are digitally connected with a phone and internet providers. And it's translation for all of the above. So if you want to be a part of a welcome circle, that would be fantastic. We ask people to start looking within their own network, what works best for you, who you will be working closely with, forming a group that has the skills to address the list that I just reviewed. If you don't have a group, if you are only a small group and you want to supplement it, as we build and grow this program, we will match you with other volunteers to round out the skills and the need that you have. So there's going to be much more to speak about on welcome circles, but what are the next steps? This is really just a high-level introduction information session to pique your interest, to let you know the direction that we're going in, and to answer any questions that you might have. If you haven't registered as a volunteer, we're happy to share the link, and there is still much more learning to do. We'd ask that you inform yourself and know that we will start training in the coming weeks. We are working closely internally. We are also working with Jewish Immigrant Aid Services in Toronto, who will share some of their training. And we're working locally with Refugee 613, who will be offering trainings that JFS will be participating in. You can follow us on social media, you can check our website for updates, and you can be in touch with Federation. If you have already registered, we may tap you on the shoulder if your skill set or offer could be of use to us sooner than later, as we're working with many other groups in the city to support Ukrainian arrivals. So I think I'll leave it there. I'll pull down my notes and I'll open up my screen so that I could see what's going on in the real world, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
So Andrea, it's Andrea. First of all, great job. Thank you so much for that. We had a couple of sort of repeat questions from people. So let me ask them. The first is, can you maybe shed some light on the assistance that JFS and volunteers are needed for non-Jewish refugees as well? Because that's been asked a couple of times. We'll start with that one and then I'll ask the second question.
So as a settlement agency, you know, we work with all different communities, and currently we are working with a couple of different groups who are helping to facilitate, we're calling, for lack of a better word, the Ukrainian nationals. So we will not turn anybody away. So if there is somebody that comes through our doors or through Federation or through JIAS that is not Jewish and is looking to resettle in Ottawa, we are connected to, we're a LASSI agency, which is the local agency serving immigrants, and all settlement agencies in Ottawa will be pooling together the resources to make sure that all Ukrainians are cared for and are supported through their settlement journey here. So I would suggest if you have somebody that you know specifically that's not Jewish, that you're trying to welcome into Ottawa, just please reach out to me directly and I will make sure that you're connected. Can't hear you.
It's only been 2.5 years and I still have to be reminded to go off mute. Thank you. So I have a couple more questions from people. Could you shed just some clarity so that everybody has the answer on A, vaccination status to be a volunteer for this, and B, who pays for the police record check?
Sure. So for vaccination status, in terms of working directly, we have to follow provincial guidelines and what that is. My preference would be that if you are working directly, if you are going to be face to face with a newcomer, it would be our preference for you to be vaccinated, as we are going to be ensuring that the Ukrainians that are coming in have the appropriate Canadian vaccinations. So we've recently done that with the Afghanis that we have been supporting and making sure that they get the Health Canada approved vaccinations. It would be our preference, but it's a little bit, we have to be very careful because I can't force this, but I'm asking that.
Okay, that's totally fair. And the police record?
Police record checks, we will be providing a letter. So as a charitable organization and a not-for-profit organization, we have a letter that we give to our volunteers and they will be able to apply. There'll be no cost.
Perfect. Okay, great.
And then we're going to be holding all those police record checks as we register everybody here at Jewish Family Services, and they'll be confidential in our volunteer space.
Okay. So another question that's come up a couple of times is just for people who are quite cautious about COVID, are there volunteer roles that would be helpful for people that can be done remotely, or
Sure.
most of it is in person?
No, we can do things remotely. We're still massaging a lot of this out. Not everything has to be done in person. Definitely there is going to be a need for a significant in-person amount of work in the beginning, as people need to be driven around and registered for school. But even just breaking social isolation, doing English conversations, friendly visiting, this can all be done remotely. We do this as a hybrid service at JFS daily. And so it would be no different than the work that we're already doing.
Okay. So that's great. Sorry, I'm just scrolling the chat. There's so much. So I guess maybe if you can offer some guidance and some advice on how you can best communicate given the language barrier. So, how you can best be supportive if there's a significant language gap.
It's always a challenge when we're working with when we've been working historically with our sponsorship groups. There's wonderful apps, but I have taken a quick scan of the people that have registered to volunteer so far, and a number of people have offered interpretation and language supports. So we will likely try and spread those amongst the different groups. But and we have Russian speaking staff here. So if Russian is a language of choice for the Ukrainians, and that's very helpful. When we were working, for example, with the Syrians who came in 2015, 2016, 2017, a lot like Google Translate was everybody's friend. I know that sounds rather simple, but it's really what worked well for everybody. And then most of the groups tried to have somebody who was a native language speaker to the newcomers that they were supporting. So we will do our best to try and make sure that that's available. There are language interpretation services in Ottawa through the settlement community, and we will be able to. So for example, if somebody needed to take somebody to a doctor's appointment and they needed to have an interpreter, we could actually help to arrange that through one of our settlement partners, which is Immigrant Women's Services Organization. They have a full suite of interpreters. So we have access to that through many of our settlement partners.
Okay. There's been a couple of questions about housing, and specifically, if you have any sort of inside information as to how housing is going to work initially, and then over long term, whether there's hotels that have been allocated, whether people's homes, and for people who have offered space, do you have any sense of whether it's going to be needed and timing of that?
That's the big one. Okay. So housing is complicated. We know that many people have put up their hand to say that they would be happy to welcome and to have a homestay, to have somebody come into their home. We ourselves are not doing matching as an agency. We're not doing matching of incoming Ukrainians to people who want to house them. There are settlement agencies in Ontario that are setting up a best practices sheet and some standard processes that will need to be followed if people would like to welcome a Ukrainian family into their home. So we'll call that a homestay for now. Our preferences and what we're really working hard on in the settlement community, and I just had a meeting on Friday, we're working with landlords to secure apartments so that they'll be able to find their permanent home. And I say that in quotation marks because I'm not quite sure how long what that permanent looks like. I mean, they are here for up to 3 years, if not longer, if they apply for permanent residency. So tricky answer. We're working on it. We're working on a registry for landlords through the Alliance Against Homelessness. We're working with our settlement partners, in particular, the Catholic Center for Immigrants, who may be doing some training for people who want to do some homestays. And we're thinking about what the best practices would be for everybody. The Canadian government, I will just, before I tell you naughty, but the Canadian government has made an announcement on the weekend that they will be offering a hotel stay for the first 2 weeks from arrival, but we've gotten no details about that yet, and we don't know what that looks like. I can anticipate from having done this in the past that those 2 weeks would relate very closely to the quarantine period that may be required depending on the vaccine status that they have coming in.
Okay. So, I mean, this is the $1 million question. Do you have any insight in terms of timing?
No. I wish. There's been trickles. I certainly have seen on my social media, on Twitter and on Facebook and particularly Facebook groups that there are people that are coming in, but we think that what we're seeing, people that are coming in have family here and they've been able to help secure travel arrangements. Literally, as this has been going on, I noticed a pop-up about what might be happening with regards to travel. So I know that the Canadian government has talked about chartering planes, but that's all that they have said. I know that there's conversations with regards to miles for migrants in Air Canada, but nothing has been said yet. So this is where we call this is an evolving situation. And all I can say is as soon as there is information to share, we can make sure that it gets out to the group. Maybe we'll create some sort of a pathway by which there can be updates for everybody. I have a sense that once we start to see a flow, we're going to start to hear about it a little bit more loudly in the media.
Okay. And I mean, I think that's the lack of knowledge, I think, is one of the reasons why we all wanted to be proactive about this and why, like 175 people joined us for an information session when there are still so many unknowns, is that when it happens, it'll likely happen quickly.
Right. And so we're doing this across the country, just so that you know. I've already spent some time with the Federation in Vancouver. I've spent some time with Federation in London, and I spend almost daily time with Jewish Immigrant Aid Services in Toronto. Everybody is experiencing the same thing. We really want to acknowledge the 171 of you that were on here today, that we really thank you so much for your interest in doing this. We are sharing as much information as we've got, and we will need to do this again once we have more information. So we all need to be patient on that, but this is national. This isn't just Ottawa.
So Andrea, to that end, somebody's asked about, further training. So, this will be a combination of, coordinated efforts by organized Jewish organizations and amazing groups of volunteers. So as those amazing groups of volunteers come together, how can you best support them in terms of information and in terms of training, even just in terms of checklist of things they need to be thinking about?
So I'm going to put together the next training that we're going to put together is around welcome circles, which will have what we call the settlement mapping journey or the checklist. I guess I would ask everybody here that as you're thinking about what a welcome circle would look like and the people that you would work together with in a welcome circle, then we'll be doing another training that will be a little bit more detailed on actually the settlement mapping plan and how that looks, and where then you can sort of start to think who would be best positioned to do what, and what skill sets you would need to boost that up. Well, so we'll do the welcome circle training first. And once you have your welcome circles, we'll be able to then expand that and talk a little bit more as we're closer to thinking about or hearing about people coming in, things like ethics and boundaries, training around mental health and the migration journey. We do that here at the agency. We're actually funded to do that program. So we'll be able to have staff on hand to do it. And we'll be working together with JIAS and Refugee 613 as they put together some sponsorship training. A lot of these will be recorded and people can also just watch them on their own time. They don't have to be live. I can and will hopefully be able to make myself and 2 of our settlement staff available to be able to meet with groups one-on-one if they feel that that might be helpful. I can't promise you that yet. I'll be able to promise it once we've got a few more bodies in the agency that will be able to work on this file with us. But we will be able to deploy them for support.
Okay, so that's great. I think I know the answer to this. So I'm getting a few questions in the chat about people who have perhaps special skills. So for example, like retired teachers who would love to volunteer to teach
Fantastic.
English as a second language. Is the best way to indicate all that through the volunteer form right now so that we can track it and as needs arrive,
Yes.
we can tap into that?
So we worked really hard on designing that registration form so that that Rebecca could collate the information in an Excel spreadsheet. So I can very quickly go down if there was a need for a specific skill set. I could go down and sort of pull out a couple of names, as I said in my presentation, to tap somebody on the shoulder if we needed something sooner than later. But if there is a skill set on the registration form that you have that you think would be helpful that we didn't think of, because that's always possible, there is a place in the space for you to just to indicate that, and we'll definitely, this is, I mean, the value of volunteers and the skills that people have to bring, it's invaluable to us. So we'll absolutely make use, we will take a look at what everybody's skill set is for sure. It's
okay. Great. And so for those wondering, if you've already filled out the volunteer form before the session, you absolutely don't need to fill it out again. I'm wondering if you can maybe speak just briefly to just remind people of what Ontario services and government services might be available. Like, so for example, OHIP and how those types of things will work.
So they're going to be eligible for all of the provincial supports that are available to all newcomers that come. It will require a registration process though. So that's part of when we're talking about the welcome circle and the documents, there will be a need to take the newcomers to the various, to Service Ontario, to Service Canada, to the Drive Center, all of these places in order to make sure that they've got all of their documents, that they've got all of the services that they're eligible for. Some of them will just require registration. So if it's language, so the language classes, you could just walk them through the registration process. School registrations, you just need to go to the school board. So these are all of the minutiae. These are all of the tiny little areas that our settlement outreach team does on a daily basis when we're supporting refugees and newcomers to Ottawa. So what we will be doing is we will be giving you that list, that checklist that you spoke about, Andrea. We will giving you this checklist, and these are all the documentations that are going to be required to be done, and the sort of the time frame. Let's remember, when they first arrive, they're going to be very overwhelmed and they're going to be exhausted, and we're going to
You're baking that.
And we're going to give everybody a breathing room before we start shoving them into cars and driving them around to all of the service centers. So there will be time in between, but it will all be included in this settlement journey map and settlement plan that we will be sharing with all of the groups as they start to form themselves.
Okay, so that's great. Before getting to the next question, there's a few people who have sort of asked about ongoing communication with this group. The good news about everything being on Zoom is that we have everybody's email. So we are happy, unless you indicate otherwise, to keep you informed as to next steps and keep you informed as we get information. We can certainly share it with everybody who signed up for tonight's Zoom. So rest assured, you are now officially in the loop if you signed up for the Zoom. Andrea, a question was asked. This is obviously my favorite question, which is how are these efforts going to be paid for?
What are efforts?
Well, in terms of the resettlement, in terms of JFS's role in this. Where's your funding coming from? That's the question.
Where's our funding coming from? Okay, so our funding is coming from our existing funding through IRCC. So I don't want to get too complicated about this. We are a settlement agency. We are funded by IRCC to do this. The problem is that all of our staff are maxed out. They're full. They don't really have any more room to take this on. There's a lot of conversations that are happening on all kinds of different levels to see, particularly with the government, to see if we're able to increase our capacity through our existing funding that we have. That being said, I have also been speaking with Federation, who have been outstanding and incredibly supportive. Like, I could get emotional about it, but they have been incredibly supportive, understanding and recognizing that this is unusual, much like, as Andrea said so eloquently, that, or somebody said eloquently, maybe Ian, that COVID was unusual. And I think that this is just our new reality. Unusual is our now usual. So, so Federation, we're in conversation with them about increasing staff to help on the coordination side through Jewish Family Services. We're also working with some other foundations that may or are considering to contribute matching dollars to what Federation is able to provide. And I guess I am fully transferring over the whole fundraising piece to Federation. I think that they've been doing an outstanding job. I know we're not talking about fundraising tonight, but if people are interested in supporting Federation in this endeavor, in supporting Jewish Family Services, and potentially the need for direct assistance to support Ukrainian Jews that are coming to Ottawa, I encourage you to, I pass the torch over to Federation and encourage you to make a contribution through there.
So thank you for that. I mean, listen, the bottom line is this is an extraordinary circumstance, and JFS is doing extraordinary work to meet the need, and Federation's job in this is to help coordinate volunteers and to help fund these efforts, and we take that responsibility very seriously.
Thank you.
So sorry, I lost track. Give me 1 second here.
It's a lot of comments in the chat.
So yeah, so there's a ton of comments. Maybe you could just say one more word about the police checks. This seems to be one that comes up
it's
a
not
lot.
that complicated, everybody.
So,
it's really simple.
And if somebody's had one before, can they prove it? Like, maybe just talk a
No,
minute.
we're going to need to issue it from Jewish Family Services. It's a letter that's going to come on our letterhead that just states why we are giving you permission to get a police record check. You will be a volunteer working with vulnerable newcomers as part of work that Jewish Family Services is doing. We have a template. We just change the names up. Some of you I know have received this from some of the people that I saw, and the participants have been volunteers with us through other sponsorships. This letter, we'll figure out a way to get the letter out to everybody. I think maybe we'll just use the list that Rebecca is compiling. We'll put a letter in everybody's name. If you would like to access your letter, let us know and we'll get it to you. I believe you can do it online. I've had to do more sophisticated ones for myself, but this one you can do it on, I think you can do it online now since COVID. You will get it, you will print it, and you could probably just email it right back to us.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I think the prevailing wisdom is that the police are very fast about this and that you can do it online, which is great. Can you maybe speak for a minute about what are going to be the efforts to help the Ukrainian refugees find work?
That's a great question. So there is a settlement agency here in Ottawa called World Skills that helps newcomers and does some matching, as does a couple of our other settlement organizations. I would also encourage your welcome circles to look within themselves to see what organizations or businesses that they might be able to reach out to say, you know, we have a newcomer that we're helping to resettle. This is this person's skill set. Would you consider, do you have a place for them? I was on I had a call today with a landlord, and we were talking about housing, and they've been very, very generous in helping us to secure some units, but they also said that they have employment opportunities. So I think that the more you're able to reach into your own communities, to your own networks and ask, I think you'll be surprised at what you're going to see as the response. If it's a problem, if it's a struggle, we have the resources. We, like I said, work together with World Skills, and we have some other agencies that have mentorship programs. I will caution on the employment side is that what we're thinking is that many of the single parented families that are coming are going to find employment to be difficult and challenging, and it won't be something that they'll be able to do right away until they settle their families, until they settle their kids. So it may not be full-time employment. It may need to be part-time employment, and it may need to be something that has a lot of flexibility.
Okay. So, all right. So, maybe I'll do one more question and then ask a final question. So, in terms of, it seems that there's a lot of people on this group who are in contact with Ukrainian refugees who are either already arrived or want to come or will come. How's the best way of connecting all these people?
That's a great, thank you for bringing that up.
How can we provide resources to
So
them?
let me back up by saying that I had mentioned earlier in my presentation about Jewish Immigrant Aid Services. So JIAS is the central intake unit. So JIAS Toronto, and somebody can put it in the chat if they'd like. If maybe Sarah, you want to throw that up into the chat for me because I can see you on my screen. Or Sarah Caspi. So JIAS is going to be the central intake unit for. We're looking at Ukrainian Jews right now want to come to Canada. If you, amongst the people who are here, know of a family that wants to come to Canada and are currently overseas, either in the Ukraine or in one of the neighboring countries, they can actually be in touch with JIAS directly, or you can be in touch with them through the central intake. Thank you, Sarah, through their central intake unit, and they will help. They will do a little bit of a screening, a little bit of a needs assessment, and then they have an army of volunteers that are going to help people to fill out the visa applications. They can either do it for them or they can do it with them digitally. If somebody has reached out to you, so not that you've identified somebody, but if somebody has reached out to you and they would like help, you can also just do it through JIAS. So if you go onto the JIAS website, there is under their header Ukraine 2022, I believe, and there is there's an email address and there's a WhatsApp number. And JIAS, so our work that I'm doing with JIAS on a national working information and referral working group table are working with other Jewish communities across Canada. So if they don't want to come to Ottawa, but they have family in Edmonton or in London or in Vancouver, JIAS will, or in Ottawa, JIAS will be doing the central intake and then connecting on a warm hand transfer to the Jewish community that they want to come to.
Okay, so Andrew, I know we're sort of running out of time. So apart from,
it is. There we go.
so apart from people needing to be patient, both in terms of your time and response time, and patience in terms of not knowing exactly when refugees will come and in what numbers they will be coming, what's the one key takeaway that you want people to leave tonight with?
I have been doing this since about 2015. I think I've been working directly with refugees, and it takes a lot of patience and it's incredibly rewarding. I think you just need to be patient. There is, as I said earlier, a humanitarian crisis worldwide with regards to refugees. And if the Ukrainians and the Ukrainian Jews find durable solutions elsewhere, please know that there are other refugees that could require help and assistance. And as us as a Jewish community coming together to help refugees is what we're built for. It's what got us here. And I think it's just giving back. And it's our tzedakah. It's why I do it. I'm very passionate about it. I'm passionate more about connecting the dots and making sure that everybody gets the opportunity to have that connection. It is a lot of work. So I don't want to make it seem like it's all, unicorns and fairy dust. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of time and it's commitment, but the rewards are extraordinary.
Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah.
And really, thank you for everything that you and JFS are doing to help all refugees, and particularly Ukrainian refugees at this challenging time. Yeah. Thank you to all of you who made time to be with us here tonight, to help, to learn, and really just to always be there for people in need, whatever those needs might be. So we will conclude the formal program now, but Andrea's graciously agreed to stay on if people have some specific questions and want to dialogue a little bit more on this. But really, thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
We'll just give everybody a few minutes to leave if they want, and then people can ask additional questions.
Yeah. Should we maybe just pull it down so I can see if people raise their hands?
Yeah, so we'll
Unspotlight us, maybe?
we'll unspotlight and
Okay.
and
Let's see, how do I do this?
Andrea and Andrea, thank you so much. I don't know what more to say. It's unbelievable, the support that this community is giving to this terrible crisis.
thank you for your leadership, Ian.
Thank you.
Really.
Thank you so much.
I'm just
Sarah,
looking
Sarah
around.
Butel, if we can stop the highlighting function, that would be great.
Highlighting function is
Yes, she did.
stopped. So you can go into your right corner under view and
Thank
check
you.
gallery view yourselves now. It's all
Perfect.
stopped.
So I
You can
see,
unmute yourself too.
I see some hands. So I'm just gonna sort of look around if I miss. So I see Elisa.
You have to unmute yourself, Elisa.
Might help to unmute. Yeah, hi. So some of us are having sort of some side chats as we go along here about setting up teams. And, I think it depending on the people you put on your team, you suggested 5 to 8. I guess it's sort of up to the team to figure out also too, in terms of 5 to 8 people, if some are working, some aren't working or whatever. I mean, I'm expecting you don't care as much what the numbers are, as long as the people on the team believe they can work together. And I'm assuming you would only want one contact person. I mean, these are very practical questions. Are they
Brilliant.
good assumptions or not?
They are excellent assumptions.
Okay.
It's getting more into the weeds. Like this will be definitely a part of the bigger training that we'll do when we're talking about welcome circles. But to your point, you can form a group as many people as you want. We were just giving guidelines and
Yeah.
and general suggestions. Of course, I mean, I've worked with groups that have 20 people in it, but I only have one point of contact. And you're
Right.
absolutely right, Elisa. When we get to the point where you're actually formed your group and you've divided up the responsibilities and there's going to be some communication with Jewish Family Services, I only want one person to be the lead. We call that the team lead. And that team lead will be the connection between that. So there can be a backup lead. Sometimes if there's a treasurer, then we have the treasurer too, so that there's that's shared a little bit. But I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks, there'll be another staff person on this file with me, and then that will be the contact, and I'll go back to, connecting everybody's dots and making sure things are running smoothly. But
Okay.
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't care the number. I'm just, people, if I say to people, you need a group of 20, they're like, I can't do 20 people. That's too many. So we try and keep it on a manageable group, and it's also a manageable group for you as well.
Right. So, I mean, because there are other skills, I guess, that will come into play depending on the type of people that we have to work with too.
Exactly.
And, especially some working, some retired, even retired, you can be busy some days of the week.
Indeed.
So I just, wanted to clear that up, and,
Yep.
we'll see what we can do here. We'll have to figure out how to communicate with one another, because I have some email addresses of some people we were thinking of, but not all, but we'll figure it out.
I can share with you just anecdotally very quickly. And again, I don't want to get into sort of how we set up the welcome groups and the
Yeah.
minutia of the welcome groups, because we'll have lots of training on that. But I'm working with this group who are settling the Afghans that recently arrived, and they all communicate on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
It just feels like
Easier,
it works.
yeah.
It works for them, but if you have a common platform that everybody is comfortable with, that's very, very helpful.
Okay, thanks. Good idea. Okay, thanks, Andrea.
You're welcome.
Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you. I don't know the order, so
You
I'm
have Stephen and then Dick,
I'm gonna let you do it then. Go for it, Andrea.
and then Flora Love.
Hi. First, thanks so much for the coordination on this. Question, I had entered some basic info into the format, but I did not see where there were specifics if, you know, to mention somebody's area of expertise. Do you want us to email that to you by chance?
I have to go back and take a look at the form. So if there wasn't anything specific in there, under other, you could do it. You could certainly email it to me, and we can plot it into the, you know, if you feel like there was something that was missing in the registration form that you want to supplement, then don't hesitate to email myself or Rebecca.
Rebecca.
Thank you, Andrea, at Federation, and we'll make sure that it's mapped out in our larger database.
Grand, thank you.
I'm going to put Rebecca's email into the chat, and you can just send her an email and we can add that easily. Dick, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Two questions. One relates to the group issue. Do you have any suggestions for how you want groups? Do you want them to be a range of skills, or you want specialized groups? Or do you have any? But what's more useful for?
A range of skills, and availability. So, and it will also depend, you know, and we're waiting to see what the demographics are. So if we have a single mom with 2 kids, for example, then it might be helpful to have parents with children in the group. But if it's a senior, you may only need 2 or 3 people. And it would be really great if there was daytime availability to help with the senior and making sure that they're socialized to some of the programs and supports and services that would help to break their isolations. So it really would be helpful to have a little bit of a range. You could also specify, by the way, so we don't know what we're expecting and we don't know how people are going to get here. But if you have a small group and you would prefer to just to support a single person, then you can make that group, that can be your identifier for your group. Like our group would prefer to work with a single male. And we did this when we were working with the Syrian surge. We had some groups that came forward and said, we would like to just support a single woman. And we're a small group of people, and we feel that that's where all of our talents would lie. And it worked well. So it doesn't have to be, you can also design what you feel you're best capable to support.
Okay. My second question is just a general question. I'm not sure you mentioned language training. Will that be done through the agency, or how will that be arranged? Or
the Ukrainians that will be coming to Ottawa are eligible for language training programs that are offered locally through link classes. So that's the language for newcomer program. So they'll be able to go and get assessed for their language, and then they'll be put into ESL classes. And that's there's 2 things that are important. 1, there's no cost to it. And 2, the link classes come with daycare. So for some of the single parented families that will be showing up, and if daycare is a barrier to their receiving language classes, they'll be able to support that.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. So Flora Love, you're up next.
Unmute. Like everyone, I want to thank Andrea Friedman and Andrea Gardner. It's wonderful to see you both, and such a profound response tonight to a terrific amount of work that you 2 have already done. So thank you, thank you. I have a collection of short questions, so I'll punch them out because I don't want to dominate. My best friend is a Ukrainian refugee who came here in '93. She and I have a klezmer band, and we do a lot of singing in the community. So she's a pianist, and we've already started to put together some songs in Ukrainian and English that will introduce the children. This is the Ukrainian flag, this is the Canadian flag, this is a mother, this is a tatush, and so on and so forth. So the sooner we can get involved with helping the children, because many of them will be coming out of trauma and exhaustion. As you said, Andrea Gardner, the travel here alone is going to be exhausting. So the sooner we can put them in some kind of pleasant context, we'd like to help with that. And as a team, we can do a lot of the volunteer work. So my first question is, who is going to be paying for their phone services so that they actually have access to WhatsApp and emails and FaceTime with their families back in Ukraine, brothers, sons, fathers? Is Rogers going to help out, or Bell Canada, or the provincial government? Or will our support circles have to help them with that?
Much bigger question, and an important question, and one that I didn't touch on because it's loaded right now, but the families that are going to be coming in are not eligible for our traditional income supports that you would normally get if you were coming in as a refugee or a vulnerable newcomer. As I mentioned in my presentation, the Ontario government has made available to them these 48 days, 2 months of financial support. It's about $730 something. I am expecting an announcement from the federal government about emergency financial support, but I don't have that just yet. So they will become, so we are looking at, one, the emergency help will help in the short term, but there is no resources available to them at this time for them to purchase things extraneously. And yes, they will have to pay for their own cell phone plans. And yes, they will have to pay for their own telephones and their own technology. Some groups that I'm working with outside of the Jewish community are raising funds to figure out how they will be able to top up the monthly allowance that they'll be getting as emergency assistance, working towards supporting their employment journey. But money and financial and income resources is going to be a very big challenge that has definitely been flagged to IRCC, but right now there are no answers to it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, there could be some lobbying done with Rogers and some of the other phone companies, but right now there's a lot of lobbying done with the airlines to try and figure out how to fly people here. So everybody is being lobbied for different support. So
Of course, and I would suggest that having that kind of technology is probably more essential to them than even
Absolutely.
clothing, because
Flora Love, I am a little cognizant of time, so I'm going to suggest that you ask your second question and then we're going to move on, okay?
Okay, the second one is, if there is an emergent situation before they secure their OHIP, how do we deal with that?
I think because they're going to be eligible for OHIP as soon as they arrive, and if there is an emergency situation, we'll be able to expedite that.
Okay,
I'm not too worried about that now that they are eligible for OHIP, but up until last week they weren't.
okay,
We should be able to help navigate that. So if you are working with a family that does have an emerging healthcare crisis, that's something that we do. Like
okay.
that's the piece where you come to JFS and we say, let us help you navigate this. We do this.
Okay, I don't want to dominate, so I'll save the rest of my questions for another time. Andrea, move on to someone else.
You
Thank
can
you.
email me, Flora Love, if you need to.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Flora Love. Sandra, you're up next.
Yeah, this is going to be really quick. Andrea G. I'm going to suggest that there be some cross horizontal coordination and fertilization. I'm thinking on the language file, but it could be on anything. So anybody that's coming forward that wants to provide English, I'd be very happy to coordinate that group. That's number one. Number two, already, you may not know this, but even people that are participating in your English classes through the Russian program, the system is already blocked on the link side in terms of availability of spots. So we need to be realistic in terms of the theory and the practice. That's all I need to say.
Well, I'm just going to say that Sandra is a fantastic volunteer at Jewish Family Services and has been doing our English conversation circles with our Russian speaking seniors. And so I will graciously accept your offer to help coordinate that, because we cannot do this without volunteers, particularly if we're going to be having not a trickle, but a wave. So I will speak to you about this offline. Sandra, thank you so much for your offer.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. Andrea, a question that sort of keeps popping up, and you've partially answered it before, which is just around the collection of goods and understanding that A, we don't really know what's needed yet, and B, there isn't a place to store it all. But there will be a time when the refugees are coming, and we might have some specific needs in terms of items. Is there ever a time that you foresee where where there might be a specific request for items and the like?
Yes and no. There is two great organizations here in Ottawa that really can almost respond on demand. I don't see Susie here, but there's From House to Home, which is really a wonderful Jewish community response to accessing furniture for refugees, vulnerable newcomers, and just generally people who are requiring support that can't afford it in community with regards to housing and furnitures. So I know that it's very easy for these organizations to work a little bit on demand. So Susie from House to Home has been very responsive when we've been furnishing the Afghanis this past weekend. For any of you who've been involved with that, I see Jen on the line here, so I think she's aware of that. But we also work with Helping with Furniture, and they are a very large organization here in Ottawa that is been furnishing refugee homes for since 2015, since I have been doing this. I have yet to hear that somebody's looking for something and hasn't been able to get it. In fact, they've expanded their warehouse and it's now much bigger, and people can go and pick out the furnitures that they want. I'm not terribly worried that there will be a need for something that cannot be fulfilled. I encourage the welcome circles to populate their local buy nothing groups. That's always a really great place to get things and to put out requests on wish list Wednesdays, for example, if you really feel that there's something that is a need and can't be fulfilled.
So that's great. I would also suggest that as needs arise, Jewish Ottawa Helps, the Facebook group that we created at the start of the pandemic, could be a really useful place. People generally are incredibly responsive and helpful and the like. Okay, I think that answers the vast majority of questions. I really do want to again thank Andrea and thank everybody for your passion and your commitment and your time and your just willingness to help. It's really heartwarming and it's really quite remarkable. So Yash Koach to all of you, and Chag Sameach.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Chag Sameach, everybody.
Sameach.
Thank you.